Welcome to Apostate of Mind. I'm Apostate Anne, and today's episode is really special to me because it's personal. Today, I'm reuniting with a family member who we haven't seen each other in years. And in fact, the last time we saw each other, we were both very, very Christian. And recently, we've been kind of following each other on Facebook and realizing we were both kind of going through the whole deconstruction process to the point of now not being religious and now abandoning our entire old worldview, recreating a new one, and now creating YouTube content about it. And so today we are reuniting for the first time and hearing for the first time each other's journey. But I wanted to share our personal conversation with you guys because I know there's a lot of people who also have religious family members and, maybe in different stages. So I thought it'd be really cool to share my journey and my family's journey and our story. So before we get started, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, it always helps to hear about new episodes coming out. I'll introduce my guest who also has a YouTube channel, and then you can also follow her. And without further ado, I'd love to welcome Cynthia Linux. Hey, Cynthia.
Hi.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. I've been
This is
wanting
just
to hear.
amazing, really amazing, pleasantly amazing.
I've been wanting to hear your story for so long, and I know you were asking me about my story, and
Right.
so kind of give everybody a background. So Cynthia is not blood related, but has been such a part of my family, known me my whole life, knows all my aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody for how long? Tell a little background about
Oh
that.
gosh, I guess I came in 1984 and I met your aunt, and she and I were very, very close. And I had an opportunity to spend some time with the whole family. As a matter of fact, I lived with them for some time, for a short while actually, and really became part of the family. Have gotten to love all of you, the nieces and nephews, and actually have seen you grow up.
Yeah.
Your trip to Spain, was it Spain? I think it was Spain, right?
Yeah, I studied abroad in Spain.
Right, exactly. And, the contests you went through and so forth. So all of that
Mhm.
has been very pleasant. As a matter of fact, with the entire family, I've got such warm memories that I will always treasure. Of course, the relationship is a little different now simply because, again, my life has taken a turn for the better.
Mhm.
So, there's just this thing about when you have that kind of religious mind, and you are so entrenched in the doctrine that anything outside of that does no longer become attractive to the religious person. It's hard to step out and engage with anyone that doesn't conform to your way of thinking. So
Mhm.
it's a little not with everyone in the family, but some.
And were
Still
you
love all you guys though, obviously. And your mom and dad are just very special in our hearts because we have seen their walk, and
mm,
very admirably so.
yeah, I definitely wanna get into that in a little bit, and I wanna kind of understand, like, did you grow up in the church? Did you meet my family through the church, or how did that part.
I did not grow up in church at all. Um
Okay.
Went to Catholic school, of course, I'm from Panama,
Uh-huh.
and went to Catholic school. And that's only because it was the only private school in my community. So we just went there. And of course, I got my first communion and all that because it just came
Ah,
along with attending the school. And then my dad sent us away to boarding school. I was very young, and he sent us away to boarding school, and and that was like a Christian school as opposed to Catholic. The doctrine is a lot different. So we
uh-huh.
were in and that was a 7-day Adventist school, and And out of that school, that boarding school, I was kicked out like 3 times. I'm just, they kicked me out 3 times because of mischief. I think I went there. I was probably about 8 years old, so I was missing my home, and so I got kicked out 3 times. And the third time, the first time my dad was able to get me back in. The second time got me back. The third time they're like, nope, that's it. We don't want her. She's
Oh
too
my
much.
goodness.
Yeah, too much. Too much work. So I spent some time in Panama. Went to school, became an honor student, became a leader in the school, and then I came here to the U.S. All this time, I had nothing to do with religion. It's
Okay.
we that was not we no guilt, no shame, no judgment, no criticism. I didn't know any of that.
Mm.
So I didn't know anything about religion other than, of course, when I was in boarding school, they were Seventh-day Adventists. So we abide by their rules, laws, commands, and all that. And the reason I kept getting kicked out is because I put up a lot of resistance to that.
Mhm.
So anyway, I came to the U.S. to go to college, and I had a really good life, and then there was a very vulnerable part in my life. I was working in New York and so forth. Then I came to a very vulnerable moment. Just life happened, and someone approached me and talked about being born again. I had no idea what that is. As a matter of fact, the first time I said born again, I never died, type thing.
Mm.
And so I left New York, went to California to get born again. I didn't know I could have gotten it right there. Left my job and all that. Anyway, I've
Wait, you
started
left
this
all that just for the church?
just for the church. I had no
Oh
idea.
my
There
god.
was this. There was this preacher. His name is Fred Price, out of Inglewood, California, and I used to watch him over, television. I didn't know that I could have gotten born again there over the TV and so forth. So I had this great management job in a publishing firm, and I left that and I
Wow.
went to California. And
That's the thing, like, this worldview changes your life's decisions. Like,
oh,
it makes such an impact.
it was now that I look back, it was just madness. Of course, I'm happy now because I'm at a good place, and here's where I
Mhm.
met my husband. So I went to California and I lived there. When I got involved in the church, I became an active member. Every church that I have been in, I've been an active member.
Mm,
So got involved there. Then I moved to Tulsa. Then I finally came to Dallas, and that's where I met your aunt.
gotcha.
We were best friends. Well, we
Mm,
became best friends. We met at church. I used to go to a local church here, big church. As a matter of fact, the reason I came to Dallas is because I saw this big church and I wanted to move from California and so forth. So I came to this big church and got involved. As a matter of fact, I got a job there and so forth, and I was there for some time. And I was a Bible teacher. I used to teach 2 classes: intimacy with the Father, and a class that's called God Wants You to Prosper. And read the Bible
mm,
from cover to cover. I mean, I was like, now I look back at it and I call it brainwashed, because that's really what it is.
mhm.
um and I did that and as a matter of fact, I also worked for Word of Faith. I was the manager of satellite operations, because they used to shoot out these monthly seminars to satellite churches, and I was involved in all that function.
So you got to
um,
see all the behind the scenes and the business
I
working
was
aspect.
responsible for the connection and the interaction with the main church, which was Word of Faith, and the satellite churches throughout, not only throughout uh, the U.S., but there are many churches in the islands and just all over. All they had to have is a satellite dish, and they would catch the feed and have a service in those churches. And of course, um, you know. revenues came to this, to the main
Oh,
church.
wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a monthly seminar, and that's kind of the way it happened.
Mm.
So I was there for a long time, and I was career driven. I was a happy single girl. I wasn't looking to get married, wasn't looking for, you know, partner, mate, whatever. And someone at church, once they met me and realized that I spoke Spanish, uh, knew someone, which is today my husband. And Noel is from Costa Rica, of course, Spanish as well. So anyway,
Mhm.
she brought us together. And when I met Noel, Noel grew up in the Episcopal Church. That's like the
Okay.
Catholic Church. I think, the Episcopal, the Catholic, they're like cousins.
Yes.
And there is just a lot of freedom. You go to church for an hour and that's it. They don't even talk tithes and offering. It's and as a matter of fact, after church, because I went with him a couple times, they have a little social with drinks and wine, and it's just so different. It's totally different. So there's
Mm.
an element of freedom in that ambiance, in that denomination, if you would.
Mhm.
So we did that. And so, anyway, he came to Word of Faith with me a few times, did not like it at all, at all. And so, after we got married, we stayed away from church totally. And then
Ah.
we met past the pastor of Mundo de Fe, and we he was a missionary in Costa Rica. We met them at a party, a birthday party, and simply because they were missionaries in Costa Rica, my husband had a lot to chat with the pastor of Mundo de Fe. And 2 weeks later, we were at that church, and we were there for quite some time, for about 10 years. And again, we were active members. Now,
Mm.
I really dragged my husband into this because he would not have he just that's not his mindset. When I met my husband, you know how they talk about, like, when I was in church, when you meet someone, you have to be equally yoked, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And the stature that I had in that church, I was called a woman of God, a God fearing woman. I don't know what the hell that was, but anyway, but that's how people saw me. And when I met Noel, he was from outside. He wasn't from inside my camp. He was from outside. But
Mhm.
Noel came with some attributes that were so fascinating. His moral character. He is a man of values, principles, and he came with a boatload of joy. I didn't have to make him happy. He came happy. And and just a very decent guy. So he had attributes that, even though they were not, I guess in my camp they'll call it, a godly man or a man of God and all that. He wasn't any of that. But the attributes, his character, just spoke volumes. As a matter of fact, everybody liked him because you could see it. He wore it. As a matter of fact, our first date was at your uncle's house.
No way.
Yes, because I didn't go into this. I went into this like real slow. And for New Year's Eve, Noel, my husband, wanted to take me out, and I said, "Well, if we're going to go any place, we're going to go to my family's house," and that's where we went. Can you believe it?
That's
That's where we went, and Madrecita,
mhm.
your grandmother,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
She was there, and everybody's
All
like,
my aunts.
yeah, they were all there.
The whole
Everybody's like,
camp.
yes, yes,
Everyone
yes.
was there for your first date.
Look, they loved him. All of them. It was like, and I wasn't looking for a stamp of approval, but to hear that from the family that I love, it was really epic. And my Madrecita is like, yes, 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 and everybody. So that was great. So and then of course we got involved after we got married. We dated for like 2 years, and we got married. and we start going to Mundo de Fe, and there for like 10 years or so.
Yeah, I know you were really involved and really deep. And even the last time you and I saw each other, I remember you were coming to speak at one of our Bible study groups
Right, right.
about what was it? Something about God and
It
finances.
had to do with prosperity because
Yes,
that's what I talk about. Yes.
exactly.
And
Yes.
and we, as a matter of fact, at Mundo de Fe, we were directors of King's Ministry. And I'm the one that did all the teaching, and we used to hold like weekly meetings at our house, and it was just something else. We were so involved. So
Yeah.
we did that for a while. After a while, Noel, we that's all we did. That is all we did.
Yeah.
I
Took
mean,
over
our
your
lives.
life, your thoughts, your
Oh gosh, and
everything.
we did travel some and so forth, but and one day he said to me, I am done. I was like, what?
Whoa.
Yes. He said, I'm done. He said, this is not life. There is no energy. There is not, I mean, he felt stifled. Of course, I didn't
Mm,
understand that. He's like, what do you mean you're done? He's like, done with what? And he's like,
yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. Obviously he was, he went to church with me every Sunday, and we were fine. But when he said, I am done, he wanted to be done with the King's ministry. He wanted to be just, that's it.
Did you see that coming? Were there
No,
things okay.
absolutely not. Well, I saw there was a sense of resistance. Like every
Mhm.
week, we had to prepare, and not only did we have the teaching, but we serve food, and it was just a thing but
Yeah.
it's like every week from the pulpit, it was the same message. And one time during the offering, the pastor said something about, I guess, the week before, someone gave an envelope with $10, and he made a very derogatory comment about that.
Oh,
And Noel was not happy with that because he said, what if the person did a separate job and got $100, and $10 was 10% from that?
yeah.
So he didn't like that at all. And Noel wasn't a person that tithed. He said
Mhm.
no. He said my responsibility is to you and my household. That's it. He didn't understand that concept. He just
And
thought that no, no, no. He just did not buy into that. He did not buy into that. He one time I thought I would arrange for him to get water baptized. And when he found out that I had talked to the pastor, when he found out that I had talked to the pastor about that, he said, what? He was indignant. He thought it was disrespectful. He
Mm.
said, you can tell him to take me off the roster. I mean, it was that simple. You take me off the
Mhm.
roster. And that
Wow.
was it. He wasn't rude. He just said, you can, he said, and I find that disrespectful of
And
me.
yeah, and about the whole tithing thing, it's interesting, like everything else in the Old Testament, they're like, "Oh, that's been fulfilled, it's the new covenant," except the tithing, like they hold on to that one
Exactly.
old thing.
Exactly.
And then even from a biblical law standpoint, but basically we don't have to do that anymore. Like
No,
it's
no,
not even
that's not part of
biblical.
it. As a
Right.
matter of fact, if when I used to do the King's ministry, I had a conversation with my pastor's wife. I said, I've got something that I need to share with you. Let's have coffee at Starbucks. So we met, and I said, and I cited the reference, the scripture. I think it's in Corinthians, and it talks about everyone needs to give out of the abundance of their heart and give willingly and cheerfully.
Mhm.
It doesn't give a percentage. And I said, because I was going to start teaching that during the weekly King's ministry. And so I said to her, I just needed to make sure that they were on board with that. And she said to me, she said that because I said, what if someone wants to give 20%? What if someone wants to give, 30%? What if that makes them happy? It
Mhm.
doesn't, it says everyone should give cheerfully
Mhm.
from the abundance of their heart. She said, that's fine as long as they give a minimum of 10%.
More is fine, just not less. Yeah.
Exactly.
It
More is fine, but just not less. And that was
they're
made,
making that up, like, that's a corruption of the scripture, and
yeah.
you just see so much of that, like, once you start reading it, you're like, "Wait, that's not what it's saying. You're
No,
twisting
it's
it,
all
you're adding that."
right, right. That's why my husband said it's a business. There is no doubt. Church is a business. As a matter of fact, we had a guest that came to the part of this King's ministry, and he came from Mexico, and he had quite a bit of money, and he was looking to invest for something to invest in. And you know what he was told? He said, if you want to make a quick turnaround, start a church.
No
True
way.
story.
Wow.
That's what he was told. They said, start a church. And my husband was just aghast. He said, what? But that happened right here in my house. To
Oh,
start a
man.
church, if you want to make a quick gain from, you invest, it was, he had probably something like, I don't know, $75,000, whatever. Get a church started and you will get that money back fast, plus some.
And it sounds so noble, like, you're changing lives, you're saving souls, but once you see it for what it is, it's, like, all empty promises. That's all they're selling. People
Exactly.
are giving so much time, so much money for a promise that's to come after you die, after you're dead, essentially.
Right, right. And it's not even, it's not like who would be the pastor? It's not like he was called to be a
Right.
pastor. They
It's
just
just
said,
a business.
invest, start a church. I guess you could look for somebody that wants to preach and get it started. But the
Mhm.
whole thing, as my husband said, it's a scam. Our views are totally different. When my husband said, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore, he allowed some time, for me to get it, to settle in, you know, he didn't want to, like, that's his decision.
Mhm.
But, he allowed me, well, not that he allowed me, it's not like he could decide for me. So, he
Mhm.
was patient. And about 2 months later, I got it. I start seeing what he sees. And, because he wanted to live a different lifestyle. And it's not anything, whatever, illegal or anything. No, he wanted to live without the burden of, uh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do,
Mhm.
our pastors never drank. So to have a glass of wine, it was like a big deal. They, in their presence, hardly, if you go out with them, people
Mm.
just wouldn't have a glass of wine. And now, of course, I've learned that I just really enjoy having a glass of wine all the time when we go out to dinner. So he didn't want all that, because the burden is because of the belief system. If you unpack the anatomy of belief, you will realize how, number one, obviously it's a choice, because you can switch it on a dime. As a matter of fact, our
Mhm.
pastors, they used to, when they were missionaries in Costa Rica, this is a story that she shared. They belonged to another religious sect. The ones, with the bun and the long skirt, and no makeup and all of that. And they had a help, an empleada, a maid.
Mhm.
And the maid went home for the weekend and came back, and she came back with a bang, with her hair cut. And so she asked the girl, what happened to your hair? She said, oh no, I went to the stylist and I had it cut. And she said, absolutely not. If you cut your hair again, you cannot work here.
Why is that? What was the
Well,
thinking?
because of that, I think it was like Holiness Church or something like that. I don't know exactly what, but it was another religious sect that
Mhm.
doesn't allow you, the ones that wear a bun in the hair,
Mhm. Oh,
and
okay,
you
so
can't
they
wear
weren't supposed to cut
pants.
their hair.
Yeah, you can't. So that was part of it. You can't cut your hair. Imagine
Wow,
that.
that's so
And
strict.
yeah, and she told, my point is this: after a while, they realized that that didn't make any sense to them, and they switched. They left that religious sect, and they came into the a more evangelical circle. My
Yeah, I
point is, it's all a belief system
mhm.
created by man, and you
Exactly.
subject yourself to those beliefs.
Mhm, and buying into the fears too, like, if I do that, these bad things are gonna happen, and sometimes when you, like, dip your toe, you're like, "Wait, nothing bad happened. It's okay. Wait,
Right,
maybe that isn't bad. Maybe I'm
right,
just believing that because I was told that."
right.
Mhm.
It's fear driven, and of course, control and manipulation. We When we were, at church, two other couples and myself, there were three of us, and I said to the ladies, I said, let's just have a husband appreciation day. And they're like, oh, and they're like, oh yeah, great. Now the other lady was a leader in the church, leader of the women's ministry, and I was a leader and so forth. So I said, yeah, let's do this. Let's on a Saturday, surprise, packing overnight, reserve a room at the Gaylord Hotel. Let's reserve a room, and on Saturday we'll take our husbands to dinner someplace else, to a nice Mexican restaurant, and enjoy it. And then we will leave there and go to the hotel. All this time, the husband, they didn't know about the overnight planning and so forth, because again, we're celebrating Husband's Appreciation Day. That's just something that I came up with.
Mhm.
So we, each one packed an overnight. And after we finished dining, we said to our husband, let's go have dessert at the Gaylord. And when we arrived there, we, each one gave them a key to the room. And it was just wonderful. We spent the night and got up the next morning, had some mimosas. It was wonderful. Now, of course, the next morning would have been Sunday morning. That means all three of us, all three couples, would miss church. We
Mhm.
didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it because, anyway, I
You're
had
free to
told
do
my
whatever you want.
exactly. And when we started our King's ministry, I said to my pastor, I said, once in a while we may not be at church because sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, my husband likes to do some fun stuff, like go to a concert or walk in a park, whatever. Anyway, so all three couples we went to that place and we missed church that Sunday. Wednesday there was a meeting at church, so the pastor asked, where were you guys? We missed you guys on Sunday. And she very excitedly said, oh, yeah, we had this husband appreciation. And she told him. And
Mhm.
he said to her, next time you want to make sure that all three of you as leaders don't miss church on the same day, the same Sunday, the
Oh
same time,
gosh.
because it doesn't look good. Now, he wouldn't say that to me because there was a certain respect between, you know, us and them and so forth. So nobody said anything to me. But just imagine, they're an adult, I'm an adult, we're all adults, and
Yeah.
he's saying, not to miss church because it doesn't look good.
And now let's say if God is watching you, it would look good that you're serving your husband and spending time
Exactly.
together, family. It
Exactly.
doesn't look
Yes.
good to him. That's what he means.
Right. So when I say control, that's what it means. That kind of control, that type of, and it's, can happen in a very subtle way. Now, no one could say that to my husband because that's just not the way he rolls. I mean, we laughed about it. I told him, but he that did not even because he just doesn't go there with this whole rules, the laws, the commands, and so forth. So anyway, so when my husband said I'm done, and 2 months later, when I said, you know what, I think you're right. Let's just take a break, and we called it a sabbatical. We told the pastor one Sunday, and we said, we're going to take a sabbatical from church, and that's it. We didn't get into any kind of explanation at all, and my husband was so happy. So a month later, I get an email from the pastor saying something like, "Do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together." There's a scripture that says that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. In other words, it's like, you're going to take a sabbatical. It's been 4 weeks. Where are you? Type
Mhm.
thing. Of
God is
course, we did
God is
not.
commanding you to come back to church.
Exactly. Do you see the manipulation and control? But they
Totally.
use it with scripture.
Yeah.
And my
Conveniently.
husband being from the Episcopal Church, or growing up, he grew up in the Episcopal Church. He's not familiar with the Bible. He only knows what he learned since he was going there, but he's not like he read it from cover to cover. He didn't really care about that.
Mhm.
That wasn't his thing. We were living a decent life, and it was fun, and we were living a good life. That's all. He didn't this about heaven and hell. That's not something that he was reared in. So he was never afraid of going to hell or any of that. And you know what?
Mhm.
Neither was I. I always questioned it. I didn't have any fear
Yeah.
at
Same.
all.
Same. That
And
wasn't what drove me to believe. It wasn't like I was afraid if I didn't believe I would go to hell.
it didn't, or it did.
It didn't. That
Oh,
hell
okay.
wasn't really a big deal, but I think it was because I was following all the rules that I was like, "Oh, I don't have to worry about hell. I'm good."
Right, right.
Mhm.
So when we left, and oh my gosh, to get up, because you see, our church was like at 1 o'clock in the morning. We didn't, I mean, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We didn't get home till about 7 or 8, because church
Oh
was
my
like 2 or 3 hours. And then by the time you're done,
god.
you finish, then you go have dinner with the friends and whatever. We would not get home till about 7 or 8. And
Mm,
to get up the following Sunday morning, not having to get up so early or whatever, to just relax and not have to commit to go to a church, it was just like glorious. We were happy with that.
yeah.
And then my husband was fine, but then my journey started. It was not even like I'm starting a journey of self-discovery. No, it just happened. I just started asking questions and questioning everything, until I have come to a place now where I had to be intellectually honest with myself. I had to admit to myself that everything I believed, even in the God of the Bible, he is an imaginary, it's a concept. It's an imaginary being. It's in your imagination. All of that. And interestingly enough, ever since we left, like in my house, we don't say devil, Lucifer, Satan, I bind you. We don't say none of that. We don't say anything about the devil. We don't say anything about God. And do you know that we don't have those issues? If something happens in the house and needs a repair, we just get it done. We just do it.
Mhm.
If I got a big promotion, it's not like, oh God, no, 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 no. I worked hard, and they reward me for my work. I got a big raise. It's not like, oh, God gave me. No, and that's the thing with Christians. They don't, you get to a place where you find yourself so unworthy. That's why people say, without you, I'm nothing. And people think that's humble.
And they also think if they ever question or doubt that bad things are going to start to happen to them because all the good things come from God.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And all the bad thing is from the devil. They talk about going through a test. Oh, it's a test. It's a
Mhm.
trial. It's a going through a trial. I mean, I don't, I look, I used to skate, roller skate, loved it. And and I know how to roller skate. I've been doing it for a while. And that was like during the pandemic, because I needed some indoor activities, and I didn't want to go to the gym, so I went to roller skate. And I know how to skate. One day I leaned back, which is something you never do, and I fell and I shattered my ankle. I mean, broke it. I had
Oh,
never broken any part of my broke it, shattered it, broke it. And so anyway, went to the urgent care and they took an X-ray and they said this is really shattered in pieces and you have got to get it uh, operated, surgery right away. Otherwise, it's going to set and you're going to limp and blah, blah. So, that's just something that happened. My husband got on the phone, called his doctor, said, I need you to recommend, the best orthopedic, sports orthopedic surgeon, blah, blah. And we connected with Dr. Heyer. And he said, if you're available tomorrow at 2:30, I can perform surgery. Imagine that.
wow.
You know, if I had gone to my doctor, I would have needed a referral. You know how that is.
Mhm.
And then you don't just get an appointment.
The consults.
Exactly, consult, and then you have to arrange for surgery and all. The fact that Dr. Heyer was able to arrange an OR room, a staff, the team that of nurses and so forth. I was out the next I was there the next day, had surgery. He said, you'll be able to skate again in 8 weeks. And
Wow.
that's exactly how it happened. And we didn't ask for prayer. We didn't pray. We told no one. Because my husband's like, you know what? Let's just do this. He got me a knee scooter for in the house and I healed and went to therapy and I was fine. We didn't. I mean, God had nothing to do with it. The devil had
Praise
nothing to do with
the
it.
doctor.
Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, I sent him an email and pictures and all, and I said, "Thank you, Doctor Hart." And he was so happy to get it because he said we always get the bad news, but it says an email like this saying how great it is, and he
Mhm.
saw because we went skiing a few months later, and I sent him some pictures
Wow.
and so forth. My point is we have learned to govern our lives based on our own terms, by our own morals, and we are guided by three things: love, kindness, and compassion. That's it. We don't get involved with unequally yoked or you can't do this, you can't do that. None of that. We have traveled extensively and meet other cultures that are not even we're not even familiar, like Muslim cultures and whatever. And we have such great conversations with people of other cultures and other religions and so forth. And
Mm.
we our lives is so rich now that we don't involve in. Now if you come to my house and we have dinner and you want to pray, well, I mean, we respect that, but we don't. Or if I go to somebody's house and they pray, we respect that, so we don't take offense to that. But you're not going to pull us back because all of that. I know, I've watched your program and I know that you and your husband Mike, I know that as a matter of fact, he sounds like a scholar.
He
And I
is.
know that you have done extensive research into the academics of it. The origins
Mhm.
and so forth. I deal from a different standpoint, and you and I know that this whole Bible stuff, it's written by men.
It really is, and primitive ideas, a lot of them that have been disproven, and you can see the influences of the old ideas of Platoism and mythology and Greek and Roman culture
Right.
in the text to realize that it's evident that it's man made.
Yes. And then there's such a patriarchal
Mm,
twist to it that, it's crazy. But the interesting thing of it, because now, I host the Cynthia Linux show. It's a once a
yeah.
week broadcast that, I stream. And the people that I deal with, I first started out, and we talk about a journey of self-discovery, because what happens is that by the time you're 3 to 5 years old, you are being indoctrinated by teachings, by information, by rearing. Your parents, they teach you what they know, and so you're getting all this information, and your identity is being shaped based on information you're getting.
Mhm.
And by the time you become an adult, you don't know who you are. Well, I mean, you are the way you were shaped. That's why
Mhm.
you find a lot of teenagers, they rebel. Why? Because they know on the inside, that's not me. Some teenagers, they don't want to go to church anymore because they're either bored, or it's not them. It was, imposed upon them.
Yeah, they're being forced.
So this journey of self-discovery, I share with people, you have to go back and really dig into yourself to know what you stand for. What are your core values? What are your boundaries, your beliefs, and so forth, to discover your authentic self. And then some people came to an impasse where they said, wait a minute, what I want to be conflicts with my religious belief. So now
Mm,
it's turned into a journey of religious deconstruction. I didn't start
yeah.
out doing that, but that's what people are facing. They
Eh,
are so burdened by the belief system, and a
yeah.
lot of women, especially single women, more so than men, have these issues, with their sexuality. And that's a big burden because, number one, you're taught that, you're inherently a sinner, you're born a sinner, you're wretched, you're no good, you're unworthy, all of that. Try to
Mhm.
take those beliefs out of people's mind.
Yes, that's such a good way to put it, a burden of belief, because I remember being in the belief, it's a constant struggle. You're
It is.
constantly struggling. I have to be submissive, I have to be serving, I have to be loving, and like, okay, I have to do it with a cheerful heart. I have to want to do it. I have to, and it's like, but you're just having an internal struggle sometimes, or like someone's
Right.
treating me badly, I have to turn the other cheek. I have to be loving to them. Like you just
Oh,
have to
gosh.
be a servant and a
Yes.
slave, and you're more than that.
Yeah, and none of that is true. Turn the other cheek? No. It's like, where'd that
Mhm.
come from? And
Yeah.
people that are, like now I talk, now my thing is gearing and, about your sexuality and things of that nature, because people think, their sexuality is nasty, and that it's only for uh, marriage. It's like they call it unwed mother, or sex outside of marriage, and those are all social and religious constructs.
That's such a good topic. I can't wait to see your episode about that, because that was one of the areas I had to deconstruct. There's such a purity culture
Purity
that
culture, exactly.
once you get out, you're like, well, what do I believe and what do I like and
Yeah.
what well, yeah, you have to discover yourself because you've been told so long exactly how you have to conform.
And you have to come to the understanding that, your sexuality is intrinsically natural. You had nothing to do with that. You don't have to teach, like at the church that I used to go to, you know, uh, they discovered one of the music person was in a compromising situation with a young lady from church, whatever, they're all from church, teenagers. Well,
Mhm.
they uh, brought them in front of the pastors, and the pastor had all these questions, all these personal questions, and then they put him on the bench. Put him on the bench means you can't play in the band anymore because there's
Mm.
sin in your life, I guess. So they put him on the bench for some time, and that, imagine the trauma that
Yeah.
you can have.
Yes. You're serving, you're volunteering, you're giving, and then they're told,
Exactly.
"No, you can't do that." It's like
Exactly. What you need to do is, like I shared with the family, when your kids reach of a certain age, you need to have a conversation with them. You need to have a conversation with them so that they can embrace their humanity, embrace and know what these feelings are all about. It's like
mm,
when, if you have girls, when they have their cycle, you have to have a conversation with them about that.
mhm.
Well, sexuality is not something that you know, it's intrinsically natural.
And
You
it's
don't have to teach. I'm sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, that's right. It's simpler. Like they complicate it. It's a it can be simpler. Like, hey, wear protection. Hey, avoid these things.
Exactly.
Hey,
Exactly.
avoid
Because,
these red flags. That's it.
well, they make it dirty and nasty and something bad.
Mhm.
And then they stigmatize people that, and that's why, in my show today I said, your sexuality is a personal and private matter. And then I made reference to how, the God of the Bible, because in my mind I don't believe in any God in the sky and that. Okay, but the God of the Bible, and when he would have his chosen people conquer a city, a nation, and kill all the men, the women, and all that, but keep for
Mhm.
yourselves the virgin.
Ugh,
That
yeah.
it's not like, no, that is him saying that.
And
Keep for your,
implying that they're raping them.
yeah, yeah, he says, keep for yourselves all of the virgins. That's what he commands them to do. So if God was
Mhm.
concerned with fornication or anything of that nature, then like, what's up with that? But it's interesting because I've read the Bible cover to cover many times, but you just overlook all the things that
Yeah.
I'm finding now in the
Yeah.
Old Testament. That's why I said this. He's a wicked, barbaric God, really, based on the things that
It
that's
actually says.
exactly. Like when people are talking about Roe versus Wade and abortion and all that. And I was, one guy. It was a podcast, and he was really going against people that are pro-choice, and he said that God wouldn't do that, whatever. So I made reference to when God commanded the death of all the infants of Egypt, of the firstborn, all of them,
Mhm.
from the Egyptian family to the servants, to kill them all. And God has commanded that in many other occasions to the Midianites, to the Amalekites, kill them, babies and everything. And so,
Including his own son.
yeah,
He killed his
exactly.
own son.
Yeah, but you can say, well, his son was an adult, but I'm talking
Mhm.
about babies,
Yeah.
infants.
Yeah.
And so this guy said to me, yeah, but they were Muslim. Really? How wicked is that?
Yeah.
And why? Just to prove a point of how powerful he is, or whatever. I don't know. The
Mhm.
writers of this book, they had wicked minds, and they created a God that is barbaric. I mean, if you are honest with yourself, you will know that all that stuff that you believe, when I say you, I mean,
Mhm.
is imaginary. It's all. There's no devil, there's no hell, there's no heaven, there is no, none of that. None of that. We don't subscribe to any of that at all. And it took a while before before I had the courage to come out. It does
That
take a while.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, do you recall the moment that you were kind of like fully unraveling, and how did you and Noel
No,
come
it was
to
gradual.
discuss it?
And I am
Okay.
still, there are still some things that I want to share them, but it happens gradual. And what happens is that you gain, I never used to think that other people could empower you. But yes, when I listen to some other people and, some podcasts and things like that, you feel empowered by the boldness of other people. And
Mhm.
but when I read something, it has to become mine. I don't repeat what somebody, I mean, it can resonate, but once it becomes mine, then it's like my husband said, then you share it with authority,
So
because it
true.
becomes, in other words, it becomes yours to where now I deal with facts. I'm a realist. I'm
True.
not even like an atheist or an agnostic. I call myself a realist. And you know so unless you
Mhm.
can show me, or unless you can, if there's a situation with you're saying God did this or God did that, most people, when they say God is, there's no proof. There's no proof.
Yeah. It's not reality based.
It's not reality based, because if there is really a God that heals, I can take him to St. Jude's and Children's Hospital
Yeah.
and really show us what he can do. But that's not the case. And then people would say, well, God is not a genie. Yeah, I'm sure you've probably heard that before too. God
Mhm.
is not a genie. Well, even the same Christians is like, you survive surgery and you say, oh, God is so good or whatever. He should have kept you from that heart attack.
Right, right.
My dad would do that for me. My
Yeah,
dad would have, you know what I mean? Well, you have kids.
yeah, like the whole house destroyed in the tornado, but the Bible is not damaged, and they're like, "Oh, God did this." Well, why didn't he save you from the tornado?
Exactly. Do you see
Yeah,
how our minds become so screwed up? Our minds become so, so clouded, that
clouded.
our critical thinking skills. Well, I know that during those Bible days, I had no critical thinking skills, and even if I did, I debunked everything.
Mhm.
You read the Old Testament and you just read it, because from
Logic
the pulpit.
gymnastics, right? Like, you
Exactly,
justify
yeah. And
everything.
then cognitive dissonance kicks in, and you know that this is true, but this is what you have been taught, and this is what you believe, and it's to break, it's hard. As a matter of fact, I shared yesterday, because this whole thing about sexuality and all, and everybody wants to get into your bedroom. People want to know what you're doing, when you're single and you're dating. And I remember one time, there was a reference that was made when I was, because we dated for 2 years, and by then, of course, I was religious, and it's just hard to keep that whole rule and law and whatever. And I am so glad that I kept my life personal and private, and shared
Mhm.
nothing with anyone.
I was just talking to Mark about this recently. I was saying, like, thinking back, that there was many times where I did feel people were trying to get into our sexual life, and how weird that was. Like, our small group leader, and how's your sex life? And when he was
No
a
way. They
pastor,
asked you
yeah, and he was an associate pastor, and the head pastor was asking him, and I just remember being like, fine, like, why are you asking? Like, this is so personal. It was so
that?
invasive.
Personal.
Yes. And so even married, it's like they're trying to dig up something, or like find a problem, or some kind of vulnerability to help you, or it seems like they're trying
Gosh,
to dig for something.
that is so out of order. That's why you have to know who you are. And like I would say to to my clients, my coaching clients, and I would say you have to know why you believe what you believe, and that's where a lot of people miss it. They don't know why they believe what they believe. They don't know.
Mm.
They just, most of them, well, that's the way I grew up. That's what I was taught, and they don't even know how to unpack it, to question it. this whole
Mhm.
doctrine thing. You know, before we go out, I need to talk about your parents because when
Yeah.
I was with your family, you know, my friends, back then, I remember, and Noel and I talk about that a lot. I remember the pressure, um, but it's not a pressure that, in my mind, I perceive your father absorbed, but I heard the pressure from the family for him to get born again. There was a great concern. There was a
Mm.
great concern, and your dad, and of course your mom, but he was, you know, he's the one with the family. I mean, his posture, he didn't have to say anything. His posture spoke volumes. And it's like, don't even come to me with that nonsense. He was never disrespectful, but his whole posture, because even myself, you know, I was just hoping at some point that he would get born again because that's what everybody wanted
Yeah,
around them, you know?
exactly.
And then, you know, your mom was like so supportive. They were like this, you know, and you couldn't come between. And it's so beautiful because, see, Noel and I, we are like this, and nobody comes between us. Of course, we don't have that stuff with the religion, but your dad, and you know, it's always your mom and dad, mom and dad, mom and dad, and then you know, the way they raised you, and you know, you, that's why when you had that contest with the singing, you know, we were part of that. And you know,
Mhm.
and we are like, I said to Noel, I said, now I understand.
Mm.
Now I see it, because he was like steadfast and firm, and you could see that they were living life on their own terms with their own guided moral compass.
Mm.
Because people think you get your morality from the Bible. That's the last place you want to get your morality from.
Mhm.
They were living their own, they had their own moral compass, you know, and you know, looking from outside, and it's admirable. It is so admirable. And I said, you know, I said, now I understand. Here, later, years later, but I could see how his whole person spoke volumes. He didn't have to resist or tell them stop. No, no, no. They would not even approach your dad, because you could tell he was like, don't even mess with my wife, and don't even come tell me stuff about your religion. I don't know if he's still that way, you know.
Yeah.
I imagine he's not born again, is he?
No, not at all. In fact, he's where I am, I think, right now.
Oh, okay.
But I think we have to discuss it, but I think he is. But at the same time, he's still always so there for his family, and he'll go support them at the church and visit, like especially if family members are singing
Right. Yes.
um
Yes.
or
And
giving
I
them
see
rides
that.
and
I see
visiting.
that.
Like he wants to go out of his way to be around them.
Right. Yeah, no, no, you could tell he was, you know, in my mind, he was a good son, a good father, a good brother, a good uncle. You could tell because I've seen pictures, you know, when he goes to New York and with them, and all the, you know, all the brothers and sisters. And that is something, it's amazing how your life can speak so loudly without you saying a word. And
Mhm.
that's what I got from your dad now that I'm at this place. And it's such a beautiful place to be.
I think that you naturally are very, happy and positive and bring so much energy. Like even just walking into a room, like you're one of those people that brings so much presence. And so I can
Yeah.
imagine people would attribute that back in church days to God, like you said, she's a godly woman and all.
Yes.
And as it turns out, it was just you.
Yeah, that's my personality. It's my energy. It's my, you know, I'm, you know, positive and optimistic, and it's always I can do and I will do, and consequently I attract a lot of good situations, circumstances. I attract, you know, the other day I was speeding. I was going in Capella and I was speeding. Well, I mean, I was just driving at my normal pace, and it was like, I don't know, it was in a 35 zone. I was going like 50, and the cops showed up, and you know, we were like, you know, hello officer, whatever, and he said, you were going 15 to 35. I says, I said, I thought I was going like 40. Anyway, I knew I was going more than that. And we talk and we chat, and he's like, where are you heading to? We were like, we're going to Andy's. He's like, oh, Andy's, that's my favorite ice cream place. You know Andy's custard?
Yeah.
He said, that's
Uh-huh.
my favorite ice. And he's like to Noel, what are you going to get? And then he asked me, and then he said, well, I'm going to need your license and your insurance. So we gave him the insurance, everything checked. And he went back to his car. Then he came back. He said, you know what? I'm not going to give you neither a warning or a ticket, but I do take, he has to take it down that he stopped somebody. But he said, and I'm like, how long is the warning? He said, this is not a warning. There is no time. This is not a warning. This is just me having to take the information because I stopped you. But he says, I want you to be careful because, I don't want you to have an accident. And that was it. And that was it. That was it. That was favor. That was, just it was just, as a matter of fact, I wrote a review to the Capel Police Department because he was so respectful, he was so pleasant, he was so courteous that we were happy.
Yeah.
I was ready for a ticket because I was going more than whatever.
Mm.
And that would have been fine. We would have just paid it. I would not contest it. My point is this: things happen just like to anyone, but because he came, I wasn't confrontational or put up any resistance or any attitude. I'm like, hello, officer. He says, I'm like, yeah, and so our lives without, like, we didn't sit in the car like, oh, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
That prayer doesn't work. Period.
I like how you just say, "That's it," because I remember coming to that realization of, like, and when you're in the belief, you're like, "Well, why did this person get in a car accident?" And it's like, "'Cause this car hit that car. That's it." Like,
Yeah,
that's it.
exactly.
There's no need to
Unfortunately,
yeah, there's no need to complicate the matter, or, like, good things happen and bad things happen. That's it. Like, just cause and effect.
yeah. And when you walk in fear and all of this, and I remember when somebody's traveling, they're sending traveling mercies and all that. Set traveling mercies. We get on a plane and we just go. Really, it's just, and before you
Yeah.
leave, you pray. I remember I used to, like, before we would travel, I would say to my husband, let's pray. He
Cover the
just would.
plane with blood.
I'm telling you, you know what? Religion is madness. It really is. It is madness. And whether you believe it or not, whether you accept it or not, it really it puts your mind to sleep.
Yeah, an imagination world.
Yeah, you don't think, and you could show something. I could show some ones in the Bible where God did that. When you say God is pro life, no. If he was pro life, he would not be killing all those babies and killing all those people. He's not pro life. They won't
Mhm.
see that. Oh yeah, but he's God, and you can't tell God what to do. They just dance around and go through all this mental gymnastics to
Mhm.
defend a God that, based on what's written, it's right there. You can just read it because that's where I get it from.
Mhm.
It's something else. But I'm telling you, I am with you and Mark. I keep saying to my husband, I said she's putting a like on some of my stuff. I don't quite get it. That's you know
Because Mark was one of the people, as you were starting to deconstruct, that was challenging you with Bible verses and all.
right. I remember that. And do you remember I didn't care?
Yeah,
I didn't care. I mean, I wasn't
I
I
don't
wasn't
believe the
ever
Bible.
disrespectful, but I
Yeah.
remember I didn't care. I didn't care
Mhm.
who challenged, because there's some others that did challenge me, but I
Yeah.
didn't care because I knew where I was going. I knew that. And it didn't matter what anyone said. I didn't care. I've come to a place that I know that everyone is going to have an opinion of me, and that's fine. That is just life. And when you reach that place, that is a dangerous place to be because you really
Mhm.
don't care. And if the person wants to not talk to you, is like, I know you're on. She prefers not to have any communication, and that is okay.
Yeah.
That is okay. And because I don't expect you to understand me, but when I saw you like putting a like on my stuff, I because your dad does. He would listen to this and he would be like, "Oh boy, this is good," and I can see that. But then when
Mhm.
you started, I thought something is happening here, and that's when I reached out to you. I'm like, "Wait a minute, tell me, please," because I am,
Yes.
which is so. I mean, I'm so glad for you because you're such a young, beautiful couple, and then you're raising two beautiful girls, and hopefully you're not. I'm sure you're not putting them through that because
No, and in fact, there was a moment where we had to go to them and be like, "Okay, you know that stuff we were teaching you before? Yeah, just forget about that. We don't believe that anymore."
really,
Yes, like they kept on asking us questions, and we hadn't come out to them yet, and Mark wasn't quite there yet, so I didn't know how to answer it, and so it'd be like, like not like I can't answer that right now, but it came to a point where we're like, okay, we've got to tell them now we've arrived at this place. This is really where we are. We're not going back. Okay, we
right?
need to undo what we've done.
And that's good because they're still at that tender age where they don't have to really, walk with that burden because it is burdensome. And then you can now enjoy the, the rest of your life in this new freedom.
Absolutely. I feel like you're a step ahead of me in that I'm still anonymous and not quite out.
It takes oh gosh, it takes time. It
Mm,
takes time because it's like what I'm teaching on, this didn't just happen overnight. I just kind of, felt my way in, and as people start asking and so forth, it emboldened me.
yeah.
And
I want to
now
hear about what people's reactions have been like and what impact it's had on you to be out.
well, because my husband says that I shared things with authority, and that's what he
Mm.
calls it. But it's because it's, when I own something, when it comes from me, that's why I don't repeat. I mean, you can say something and it resonates with me, and if it resonates with me, then I process it and own it. This is now mine, even if it's the same thing that you said. But once I see it for what it is and comes from me, then yeah, I'm going to share it with boldness, with confidence. And I'm one that, of course, in my years in corporate America, I had to make so many big decisions that, with people and whatever. So I have a lot of confidence. But with this, it took me a while, and
Mm,
it's just now there's some things that I'm still not yet prepared to share, but that's because I need to know it so well so that
mhm,
I don't share it secondhand.
mhm.
Because once you get to know you, once you go through that journey of self discovery and you know who you are and you're looking for that authenticity, then you don't, I honor that. That's the thing. I honor myself. I honor my thoughts. I honor me before I worry about you. Number one, it's going to help me, and it's going to, I'm evolving, I'm growing, and whatever. And if it's not, it's nothing illegal, immoral, unethical, it's none of that. And again, that's, that could be subjective, but the
Mhm.
point is, if it's not illegal, immoral to me, then I'm good with it. Now, if you don't agree, because most people say, well, you mean you're not because if you when people learn that you're not a Christian, that's like a big deal.
Yeah.
But I was in a network meeting and I said, and they asked me, I'm a life coach, and but I also have this show, and they, oh, what's your show about? I said, well, it has to do with discovering yourself and so forth. I said, but now it's turning into religious deconstruction by people that are having issues. And she said, well, what do you mean by that? Is that like bringing them to Christ, or what? And I said,
Mm,
well, there are people that are traumatized by their religious doctrine and they need clarity. And you could tell that they kind of wondered about that. But I didn't
mhm,
care. I didn't care their opinion. The only reason I told them is because they asked me. But I'm not going to lie to them and dishonor myself. But I had to get there. I had to get to that place. Before, I didn't want you to ask me at all. I didn't, I
mhm.
people look at me and they think, well, if you're here, you're a Christian. You're a believer. This is a believers group, and we trust Jesus and whatever. And that's not me. And if you ask me, I'll tell you, I'm a realist. And so you have to get to that place. I cannot tell you that it was easy or there was no challenge. No, it's not easy. It's not hard, but once you come to that place where you know who you are, then you start honoring yourself, your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, your actions. You have to honor yourself before you honor someone else. That's why I remember when Mark used to challenge me. And I can understand that because that's who I used to
Mhm.
be.
Right.
So I understood that. But because I was changing, I could not pretend just to pacify the challenge or to mitigate, the friction. No, I didn't. No, no, no. I came back with where I was, and of course, make sure he knows I don't hold it against him. As a matter of fact, I said, "Wow, that is so great that you have come into this awareness and so forth." But
Yeah, no, I'm sure if anything, he's like, "We're on the same team," like,
yes,
happy.
yes, I can't wait for us to get together. But uh, but yeah, and that's what you have to think. Honor yourself first. Honor yourself. Think about that. It's like respecting yourself over the comments of or the opinions of others. And I know for you also it could be a little challenging because you have family that are pastors.
Yeah.
Now, see, like they disconnected with me, but one particular person sent me a DM, and they said, "Boy, I love the way you live your life. Keep on living."
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I just love her and love her family. Yes, she's like, I just love the way you live your life. Keep. I was like, wow. Yes, that you're gonna lose some relationships, and I
Mhm.
reckon with that. Again,
Mhm.
that was okay because you reach a point where you start honoring yourself, you respect yourself, and you just put yourself first.
Mhm.
Now, look at this. If I didn't, I put myself first, and look where you and Mark are. You've like come around here. If
True.
I didn't, you, I mean, you would not have known that.
Mhm.
No, you
That's
no, and
right.
you remain anonymous as much as you need to, and you will know when you can.
I really admire that you're at that place, and I feel like you're in a position to be a voice when other people may not be in a safe place to be able to, and so
Right.
you're doing it for many people. You're a voice for many.
Well, that's good to hear because I listen to a lot of podcasts of people that are deconstructing, and when you're in that community, everybody is of like mind. But when you come away from that, like a lot of my connections on Facebook, when I started on Facebook, I was still at church, and everything that I
Oh.
yeah, and everything that I post was scripture. As a matter of fact, now every time something comes up, I delete it. Anything comes up, if it has a scripture or God or Jesus, I delete it. I delete all those old posts. And I racked up over 5,000 followers. People loved me for that. because I used to post all those things, and it's all hope
Yeah.
deferred, And once I start changing, I start losing some people, but then I would gain some other people. And from my videos, some people they disconnect, which is, again, that's fine with me. But when I started, I was religious, so I have a lot of religious people. And when I started my show, I didn't want I didn't want anything to do with religion. I didn't want any religious people. I didn't want anything to do with even what I'm into. But it just took me there because of
Hmm.
the people that I that are going through deconstruction, and the people that I whose stories I hear and all that.
Yeah, I think people say, well, why are you so obsessed with religion if you're not a part of it? Or you must be so angry because you're still talking about it. But it's not that. It's almost like you want to be the person that you wish you had when you were in it, just a voice of reason, a voice of questioning and doubting, and
Right,
empowering you to dare to doubt, dare
right,
to think critically. And we need more people to get the word out, because if everybody's saying the same thing, you're in an echo chamber. You never see the truth or have the opportunity to challenge
right.
what you've been told.
And it's like, like on my program, I said, I know this show is not for everyone. If you're happy in your religious walk, then go right ahead and be happy. I said, but this is for those of you that are at an impasse, that you're having a challenge with your religious doctrine versus your desire to, discover your authentic self. And I said, for those people that are deconstructing from religion. So I make that clear. If you're happy, because religious people get mad, they get angry.
Yeah.
They are, especially now that you go back and, I think it's Isaiah 45:5. I didn't even know that existed, where God says, I create evil, I'm an evil, I create good, and I create evil. And he tells you that he does. Well, when you point that out, that's just hard to register in a religious mind. I said, well, he's the
Mhm.
one that created evil. That's hard. That'll
Yeah.
blow your mind because it's all in there. And then I would say that's so wicked. You created Adam and Eve, and they didn't know what good or bad meant. They didn't know what you shall surely die. They had no experience about you shall surely die. They didn't have that experience. And then you put the temptation right there for them, knowing that they will miss the mark. And then you create, think of that. Then
Yeah.
you create a hell for them. You kick them out of the garden. I said, that's a wicked dad. That's wicked. My dad wouldn't do that. They kicked me out of school 3 times, and my dad got me back. And when I got home the third time, when they wouldn't take me back, my dad took me to a psychologist. They thought there was something wrong with me. They said, no, she's perfectly fine. She's just missing her mom and dad. And then when they put me in the local school in Panama, I became an honor. Me eximir is when you don't have to do the final test,
You're
whatever.
exempt. Yeah.
Exempt, yeah. And then I was cuerpo de orden y disciplina. I wore this badge, which is like a leadership. When they see you with this yellow badge, they know that if there are any issues, you're the one that they call upon to go. So I was like a model student. And then I had my debutante. My dad was so proud and all that. So there was nothing wrong with me. It's just that I I didn't want to be. So, there was a resistance even back then when I was little. And the only reason I became born again is because they caught me at a vulnerable moment. If my dad wouldn't do the stuff that this God does, then my dad is better than God.
Yeah, where's the forgiveness? Where's the love? And it's so harsh to punish all of the generations that were to ever come after
Right.
that just for eating the apple, like just for
Right, right, right. And I'm
disobeying.
saying, I'm saying, why don't you just, okay, if you have issues, why don't you just get rid of Satan? Just get rid of him and keep your children. but
Put
you're
put
sifting
your
them
tree
through.
outside the garden.
Yeah, you're sifting them through the born again, the not born again. I said, just get rid of him, or better yet, forgive him 70 times 7. You
Mm,
forgive him.
yeah.
Really?
He
God
doesn't
should
follow his
forgive
own
him?
rules. Yeah.
Huh?
He doesn't follow his own rules or his own
Exactly.
moral standard.
Thou shalt not kill, yet he is killing all the babies of Egypt. There's a lot of stuff. I'm sure you and Mark have a great time unpacking that. You probably did all that already because it's fascinating. Because when I go through it now, it's like, dang, it's like how could you miss that? I don't. How could you miss that? I don't know how I missed that. I know I read it, but like when you read the story of Job, you know that story, right?
Oh gosh, yes.
But what you read or what they say, what you come out with is that he was restored twice as much.
Lost
If you have
everything.
10 children and they're all dead, are you going to say, "Oh, but I have 14 now"? Oh,
Mm,
you'll be grieving forever.
yeah.
Think of it.
But I still love God. That's all that
Exactly.
matters.
Yeah, and so it's like how do you even do that? And then when I read Jonah, I'm like, Cynthia, oh, I look, I had secondhand embarrassment for myself because it's like I taught that. The acid juices in the stomach of a whale, that alone would kill him. And you're gonna tell me he's sitting in the stomach of a whale and the whale is not chewing him up? Oh, I don't even want to talk about it because it's embarrassing. But I believe that
Yes.
I used to teach that
I love
because I
there's
oh,
a book that said being a Christian made me talk like an idiot, and it's so true.
oh my gosh, it's
Cringed.
really
Like,
it's
why
it's
did I
just
think
really
that? Why did I believe that?
yeah. You just wonder like and my husband he said to me he said I cannot even imagine someone as intelligent as you are and so so together like how'd you wind up in that but
Yeah.
it's I'm telling you, it's got a lot of people convinced.
I wanted to share something with you that you made me realize that I never thought about before. And you said that the church kind of caught you at a vulnerable moment.
Right.
And now that I think of it, that's kind of how they got me too. Our vulnerable moment was that Mark and I had met and really quickly were already like wanting to marry each other. And we were kind of like, but we were afraid. We haven't known each other that long. Is this really a good idea? But we were just like so ready to be married already and to like start our life as husband and wife. So I felt like we were trying to do all the things to ensure that we're going to have a good marriage, like premarital counseling and someone had told us that you're going to grow stronger together and have a successful marriage if you put Christ and God at the center of it. So we're like,
Yes.
okay, well, let's do that. And that's how we got more and more involved out of like wanting to ensure that we are going to have a long, successful marriage. But I never thought about that. And so you made me realize like, yeah, we were vulnerable because we were worried about that. Didn't want our marriage to fail.
Well, fortunately, also you had a good frame of reference. Your parents, because to me, your parents are a great frame of reference.
Mhm.
Their lives. But yeah, you go through all those steps and a lot of warning and they tell you the family that prays together stays together. Now Coco, you
Exactly.
know that there's no truth to that. Do you know how many pastors I know that's gotten divorced and not just divorced because of extramarital relationships? There
Yes.
are a lot, and even the church I used to go to, we're no woman. He left his wife, he married this person, then he left her, then he married someone. That I'm not saying it's good or bad, right or wrong. The point is when they say Jesus is the glue that keeps you together, there is no truth to that. And this for richer, for better, for poor, for richer, for all of that stuff is just, we didn't do that when we got married because
Mm.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that anyway. I don't like that kind of for richer, for poorer, for better. No, 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 no. But if I can say, I honor you, I respect you, I admire you, and I get to do life with you, that comes from my heart. I'm so
Yeah.
glad I get to do life with you. Let's go on an adventure. Let's just do it. That comes from my heart. But if I
Mhm.
said, for richer, for poorer, nah. And do you know what I learned? I just learned this, tradition, because I am breaking away from a lot of traditional stuff. When you get married, your daddy is who walk you down the aisle. That's tradition, and that's good, and that's still happening, and it's good. But now, some couples, especially if they have lived together, they are choosing to walk themselves down the aisle.
I think that's great. I have a friend who did that. She didn't want her dad to walk her down the aisle, and I'm sure it hurt his feelings. And the priest or the pastor was like appalled and like trying to force her, but she's like, no, because she works in immigration, and she hears about all these women who are like forced into marriage and like given over to these men, and it's just such a history of women as property passing from the man having her as property to now the husband
Oh,
having
that
her as
was
property.
yeah. The thought process that I have learned from couples is like, it's like, I've got your back. Like, we have each other's back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are in this together. We are, and they walk them with that thought process. Now, if your dad is still around, you either have to have a conversation with your dad to make sure he's okay with it. But it's something that, one has to make a decision for them. It's a hard decision. And in
Yeah.
some cases, if the dad is not around, then it's easy. But even today, if your dad is not around, it's either uncle or a brother. It's usually that's the traditional way. But today, couples are choosing to walk themselves. I thought, man, that's different. That's really different.
Yeah, but it makes sense, like there is a lot of roots in the whole patriarchy and religion with our
Yes,
ceremony of the wedding.
yes,
And quinceañeras, same
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Hmm.
It's oh yeah, it's changing. It's just like when I give that scripture about when God said, "Keep the virgins for yourself." Now, interestingly enough, okay, He says, or in the ancient culture, when the bride got married, the husband brings a sheet to show that the bride is a virgin, right?
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
breaking of the hymen and whatever.
Mhm.
What about the guy?
Yeah.
What about the guy? That just is like, oh, really? What about him? Does
Yeah,
anyone even question if
right.
he's that's
That's
why
such a
you
good
know the
point.
Bible is written. I mean, of course, there's no evidence, but that's why you know the Bible is written by man. There's no evidence that it's.
Mhm.
They say it's inspired word by God, whatever. That's why you know that
Now
it's
they
written.
do have the short end of the stick with circumcision. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, right, yeah, yeah. I don't even. Yeah, that's that. But then again, that as a matter of fact, I read where that that they shouldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, how barbaric is it? Think about
Yes.
it. You're
Okay.
cutting up your baby's penis tip. That's
Okay. So you have the
horrid.
same understanding as me. Yes. I understand
Yeah.
medically. They said not only yeah, barbaric,
Yeah, it's kind of a
but
myth.
even in your anatomy and your sensation and all that, they said that they shouldn't do that because it takes
Mm.
away. I mean, who came up with that?
It's very, very ancient and primitive based on
Yeah.
old
And
understandings.
they're saying don't do that anymore
Mhm.
to to babies that are born today. Now that is so embedded in our minds that some people think, oh yeah, for cleanliness or whatever. No, cleanliness is when you take a shower. You wash, You wash your stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't make it any cleaner. You just have to take a shower every day and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, see all those. I'm telling you, this this is so refreshing to me. You know why?
Definitely.
Because I don't really have anyone that I can unpack things with like this.
Oh, really? Well, we
Not
should keep this
one.
going. This is
But
so
you know why?
fun.
Because I would be the one teaching, well, not teaching, or sharing with someone or helping them. But to be like on an equal thing that's already there, like you are, I, there's no other than Noel, but we just
So
talk.
cool.
But
Yeah.
but like to unpack and your input and so forth. There is not one person locally or even on the phone. I can't get on the phone and talk with anyone. I may be able to mention something, but not. I don't have anyone that's close. Deconstructed, whatever. One may say, well, I do this, and I believe there's a higher. I don't believe in God, but I believe there's a higher power and all that. But no one that I can unpack things like this conversation has been. I don't.
Well,
Not
I
one.
love that. That's so beautiful. I love that we can have that community to share that experience with.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you guys for watching. This has been Apostate of Mind.
They call me a god.